Good afternoon. Welcome to Ask a Family Transition to College. This afternoon, we have Mike and Stacy with us. Mike is a graduate of Urbandale High School. He is currently in his third year at University of Iowa's REACH program, working to obtain the necessary skills to be an associate in an elementary school classroom. He is president of the University of Iowa REACH Student Council and has 2 internships in Iowa City. Mike is passionate about sports, specifically the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Minnesota Twins and Vikings. Mike is an avid baseball card collector and has many hobbies, including golf and traveling. Stacy is Mike's mom, along with his 2 sisters, Megan and Sophia. Stacy has a master's in business administration and has devoted most of her adult life to her main passion of advocating for meaningful employment for people with different abilities. She has helped numerous families navigate the IEP process. Stacy and Mike live with their family and their 3 wonderful dogs in West Des Moines, Iowa. Welcome, Stacy and Mike, to Ask a Family Transition to College. I'm actually going to turn it over to Alicia, one of our staff members at Ask Resource Center, and she will be facilitating the conversation.
All right. Well, thank you again, Stacy and Mike, for being here. I feel honored to be able to have this conversation with you and then share it out to others who might be looking at doing something similar to what you've done, Mike, going on to college after graduating. Deb did a nice intro sharing a little bit about both of you, but Mike, is there anything you want to add?
In my free time, I like to watch sports, and I like to collect trading cards as a hobby. So as I'm home in quarantine, that's some of the stuff I'm doing.
Okay. Finding ways to fill your time. Well, I'm sure, Stacy, that you love having him home.
Yes, I do. We've had a great time, and we've been to the card collecting store, and we're going to go to a baseball card show. And so, yep, we're just enjoying our time together.
Mike, how long before you go back to the University of Iowa then? Are you off through January?
I go back January 25th.
Okay. So we're really here today to talk and hear about your experience with transition. So the transition from high school onto college. So is there anything that you want to share, Mike, about your school experience in general? So maybe your high school experience at Urbandale and then moving on to looking at different programs or looking at REACH?
Yeah, so I kind of talk about what it was like coming from, the Des Moines area and then going to Iowa City, because the first time I moved into the University of Iowa, I'll be quite honest, I was really scared. And I was not used to the idea of being away from home. And so I can remember myself the first week, I was just really upset because I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to be in college. And I just say the first year, it was really difficult for me.
I can appreciate you saying that, Mike. I remember having some of those same feelings when I went off to college. But here you are 3 years later and you're doing awesome. So you obviously overcame those feelings, and that's great. So can you tell us a little bit about the things that you did maybe during your high school years that helped you get ready for your time at college? Did you always know that you wanted to go on to college?
I don't know if I always knew if I was going to go to college. There's always been other options such as community college or some other stuff. But, my junior year of high school, it was actually my mom. My mom recommended UI REACH. And at the time, I wasn't really sure because I was actually I was quite against it because it was so far away from home. And even though I'm a Hawkeye fan, it's just I wasn't really fond of, being 2 hours away from home. And after I went to the University of Iowa and I thought it over a lot, then I felt like, I could really figure out what I wanted to do in life. And so, in October of my senior year, I told everyone I was going to the UI REACH program. And I graduated in May. You know, it's crazy that time really has flown.
It does. It goes fast.
I have a pretty funny, just little story to add to that. So it was in April of his junior year. And so we had been talking about different options for what Mike could do. I'm sorry, of his junior year in high school. And we were talking about different options of, what might be available to him. And so took a little convincing, but we scheduled a tour over at Reach, and the whole way over, Mike was like, this is too far. I don't want to go here. We went through the orientation that day, and the whole ride home, it was, I really want to go there. How do I do this? So it was really heartwarming as his mom to see that change just within that one day. And it's been a really good program for Mike.
That's awesome. So I was going to ask you both, Mike, you talked about feeling scared about making that transition and being 2 hours away from home. Do either of you, can you think of things that helped with that transition? Obviously, it sounds like doing the tour on site, on the campus helped probably so that you felt a little more familiar with the campus, although I know you've been a Hawkeye fan for a long time, so you were already probably somewhat familiar with it. Any other things you can think of that helped? Did you spend some weekends at home? Did that help? Did that make it harder?
I think what helped is, try not to think about being away from home. Because here's my thing. If you think about being home all the time, then you get this idea in your brain. It's like, oh, I'm too far away from home. I need somebody. Sometimes you're gonna have to I would say grow up. And it was really difficult at the time and be thinking this stuff. But I just kept thinking to myself, what am I gonna do if I'm older? My mom is not always gonna be around to help me out. So I started thinking of stuff that I could practice while I'm at college, figuring out how to manage my money. That was a lot of the big, figuring how to manage my money, and finding time throughout your day to call my mom or call whoever I needed to. But it took a lot of practice. It was not easy, but as I've gone throughout these years of college, I feel like the easiest way is to just do stuff that you like, practice the things that you want to do when you want to live on your own. And, it's okay to call your family.
Yeah.
Don't
I think that's excellent advice, Mike, because our hope is that other people who are, other students who are maybe currently in high school and want to go on to college will watch this and hear these awesome words of advice you're giving on how you made it work and work well. Did you feel like making some connections at school, either with teachers or roommates or friends, did that help also?
So at first I was kind of shy and I felt like I didn't want to contact with anybody. But as I got on, I'm kind of very selective with my people that I'm trusting to. And so at the Reach program, we have advisors. You get a one-on-one advisor. And so I've become really attached to my one-on-one advisor. And so if I ever have an issue, I feel like I can go to him and talk. And also my girlfriend's also been a huge biggest support for me because, she's always there. And, if I ever want to talk, she's always there too. So like I said, I've worked a lot on opening up myself.
That's awesome. Stacy, is there anything you would add, things that helped encourage him when he was first making that transition to college?
Yes. So the summer before he went, we worked a lot on some of the skills that he would need while he was there, doing laundry and, like he said, using the ATM for money and all of those sort of skills that he would need while he was there. And the great thing with modern technology is FaceTime. So when he would go to the laundry room, I would often get a FaceTime call of which setting to turn the machine to and stuff. So we really worked, well doing that together. Specific to the UI Reach program, they have a lot of social offerings. So one of Mike's favorite things was the weekly dodgeball game. And so they would all get together for that. And then of course the Big Ten sports. And so going to the Hawkeye games really helped. And so that first year, whether I had a ticket or not, typically if it was a home football game, I would go over, take Mike to either breakfast or lunch, whatever game time start was. And, just make that little bit of contact with him. And then he would go off to the game with his friends. And so that really helped sort of ease that transition. And it was a good way that it was like, instead of, having Mike come home for the weekend, it was, me touching base, giving him that comfort, but then he was then on to go be with his friends, do something he loved, and then all was good. So, but I think a lot of preparation, talking about it ahead of time, talking about what he may experience at college, talk about what to do if he experiences those things, pick up the phone and call or talk to his advisor, all of those things. We had many, many conversations that summer before he left, just to at least lay some groundwork. So if he found himself in an uncomfortable position, he could sort of dial in his head and think, okay, what did we talk about that? Okay, this is what I need to do. So he had some of those tools ahead of time, to sort of, help make that transition a little bit smoother for him.
Excellent. So that brings me to another question. I hear you talking a lot about preparing for those pieces like the money, Mike, you were talking about, and how to manage your money, doing that at home. Were there classes or pieces of your high school career that you focused on some of those things as well? Or was that mostly stuff that you just worked on at home?
It was mostly stuff that college they really preached about, budget and money saving. In high school, they really didn't talk about it that much, but once I got to college, that's what they really started preaching.
Do you want to tell Alicia about going to Rolling Green and sort of for that part of what you were doing with your internship at Iowa, going to Rolling Green and doing some of the associate training?
I thought you were talking about money.
Well, she did, but she said in any other things.
Oh,
yeah,
so
please do tell us about that, Mike.
So in high school, I used to go to Rolling Green Elementary, which is a school not too far from where I went to high school. And I would go Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I would go help out in the special education room. And so I feel like I got a lot of hands-on learning when I was there. And so and that was one of the reasons that I wanted to become a special education associate, or at least work in the school system in whatever position I would get in the future.
Okay, so awesome. It sounds like you kind of knew that that's what you wanted to do then from high school. You had some experience in high school. Can you maybe share a little bit about your internships and what you're doing with the hopes of eventually, I believe, working as a classroom associate?
The first internship I'll talk about is this one at Little Angels. It's at the United Methodist Church in Iowa City. And so since, unfortunately, because of COVID, all of them are online. And so my job is to help them out with the technology part of it and make sure that they're like not goofing off. Most of them are kindergartners, so you kind of have to like keep a really good eye on them. And the second internship I'll talk about is this internship called Lend. It's Iowa Lend. It's an organization at the hospital in the CDD, which is the Center for Neurodisabilities and Development. And I am a Lend trainee there. And my task is to do a lot of research about disabilities and do a lot of advocacy.
Mike, I was so excited when your mom shared that you were doing that internship, because here at Ask, we talk a lot with families about encouraging self-advocacy. And I think of you as being a wonderful self-advocate, and you're kind of doing that in your internship, sharing your story, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for other adults your age, or even maybe students who are still in high school, on how to be a good self-advocate?
Learn how to speak up for yourself. And what I mean by that is there's always this been narrative going around saying that people with disabilities don't get a word, and other people do the talking, but I'm just a person like you, and I've learned how to like say I want these specific things versus someone saying you're doing this. So I would say practice, figure out what you want, and then go do it. Don't wait for someone to tell you to do it.
That is great advice. And I know, Stacy, from knowing you when Mike was younger, you've always been a very strong advocate as well. And so he's obviously learned a lot from you. So I'm glad to hear, Mike, that you are doing your own advocating now, because I imagine that's helped you be successful, or even more successful, at the University of Iowa. Stacy, do you have any recommendations that you might give other families or other parents in advocating for their child through that transition time?
So one of the biggest things for a lot of people who have children who have different abilities is we are very used to jumping in and solving and fixing everything for them or getting them what they need. Once they enter that high school time frame, and it's different for everybody, but what I really tried to do was include Mike in all of the decision making. So he would have his voice heard within an IEP meeting, or whatever it was, a job that we were trying out. Because back to that, we tried out a lot of different jobs to see what Mike would like before he really settled on, I want to work with the kids. So it wasn't just that was the only thing that he focused on. We tried a lot of different things, grocery stores, desk job, all that kind of stuff. And then this is sort of where he settled. So then we worked on that. And so he had a strong voice in that. It wasn't me saying, this is, the path I want you to go down. It was a lot of trial and error and a lot of his input into what he would really like to do. And so when I kind of look at that period of time is going from sort of a control environment where we're advocating for them, to sort of advice and guidance and let them have a voice. And practicing that during the high school years is really important, because once they do transition onto a different level of either college or trade school or whatever it is that's going to be headed their way, they will be able to have a bigger voice and have some experience in advocating for themselves then, so that when they do need to, because a lot of colleges, let's say it's a traditional college program, but they need the help of disability services, they have to be able to self-advocate, do that on their own. The mom can't go into disability services and line that up for them anymore. So it's just practicing those skills over and over and over again in the safe environment of when they're living at home in high school, not waiting until they are going on to that life after high school and then starting to try to encourage self-advocacy. I think it's less of a shock to the system if it's sort of been ingrained in their lives up until that point.
Okay, so that makes me think of two things. So one, I'll address to both of you. You mentioned the different jobs that you tried, Mike. Was that created as an opportunity through high school at all, or is that something you and your family kind of worked on? Did you ever work with Voc Rehab or anything like that?
Yes, I worked with Voc Rehab, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about my first job. I'll be quite honest, I was not a huge fan of working at Hy-Vee, mainly in part because I went into class and my resource teacher was like, "You're getting a job," and I was like, I was like, "Where?" And I was like, "We're gonna apply to Hy-Vee," and I was like, And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm making money. But like now that I realize, someone else spoke for me. The point I'm trying to make is someone spoke for me, and I never made that choice. I felt like I was forced to get my first job at Hy-Vee, and so I was like, I was okay at the time, but like I wasn't. Now that I look at it, I was just like, that's not how anyone should get a job.
You learned that it wasn't what you enjoyed, right?
No, and I never want to do that again. I want to do something that's fitting to me, not what someone tells me to do. And I think, and I'll say kind of like with some of the students in my program, I feel like people in my program are like, being told to do these certain things. And it's really hurting their like developmental process, because what happens is they get this message inside of their brain. It's like, someone's always going to have to tell me to do stuff. And it's just like, they feel like they can't speak out for themselves. And, I felt like that. I felt like in high school and middle school, I felt like someone was doing all the stuff for me. And it wasn't until like probably, I would say, a year and a half ago, I realized, I need to start doing stuff for myself.
That's awesome. And it seems like you have done a great job doing those things for yourself and advocating. And I bet that you are a great example for those other students that you mentioned. I think probably by seeing others who are, seeing you specifically, kind of always voicing your own thoughts and your priorities and what you want out of life is important for them to see. so that hopefully they can gain some of that advocacy themselves. The other question that I thought of while you were talking, Stacy, is a little bit related to, were there things that you felt as you went, and I understand REACH is a little bit unique in that students have to be accepted into the program. Was there documentation you felt that you needed to have lined up and prepared to bring along? Was it more of an interview, Mike? How did that process of being accepted to REACH look, and making sure that you had the right accommodations in place?
When I found out when I was interested in UI Reach, I had like a separate application for people who are specifically applying to UI Reach. And then once I did that, they sent me in for an interview, and then I looked kind of like a doll. I was all dressed up. I looked really ridiculous, but I understood the purpose. And then I got my acceptance letter, I think the day before my sister's birthday. I got that letter, and then, I took another tour, and then in August, it was my first day of school.
So from the parent side, yes, there was a lot of paperwork. So the way that system worked at the time when Mike was, now they've changed some things around, so I can only speak to when Mike was admitted, but we did the tour first, then you go in and you have an interview. And you are separated from your student during the interview. So Mike had REACH staff interview him, and then I had REACH staff interview me, and then went through a process where, they discussed privately, whether or not Mike was a good fit for the program, all of that. That took a couple of months. And then once he was accepted, then yes, there was quite a lot of paperwork that was involved, but nothing that if you were on an IEP in the high school system, a lot of the information was either from the IEP in that high school setting, things that may change going into college, making some adjustments to that. And then it was on their forms. I mean, you're not turning in your IEP to them, right? The information. So it's not like you're reinventing the wheel. You can use some of the information that you may have on hand from prior years and things like that. But it was quite a lot of paperwork, but in the end, it was very worth it.
Okay, thank you. That helps clarify, I think, for some families on what to expect.
Yeah.
So you guys have done such a great job. I haven't really stuck to our script that we agreed upon, but thank you for your flexibility. Probably the last question, because I'm looking at our time, and then I want to allow time in case there are any other questions. Mike, this, I guess, is specifically to you. Could you talk about, and you already have a little bit, but can you expand on what your ideal job would be, and whether or not you feel like your experience in high school that you've talked about and also college has prepared you for that ideal or dream job?
So as I've gone through college and I've done all these experiences, I kind of have a few ideas in mind of what I want to do. One of those being is to school. That's always an option for me. But, some other work I may want to do is some advocacy work, because Len has really taught me how important advocacy is, especially in the disability community. So once I graduate, I think I'm going to spend some time and looking at ideas and reaching out to people and see what opportunities become available. Because I don't want to just come here and say I'm going to do this. I need to make sure that I make the best decision for myself.
Thank you. That's a great answer. And I think, yes, you have found a niche in advocating. I think you have a great voice, sharing your own story, but also supporting others with differing abilities. So thank you for that. I think Len sounds like it was a perfect match for you. All right. So I think with that, I just want to thank you again for your time. Deb, I'm not sure if there have been any questions pop up in the chat box.
There hasn't, but great story, Mike and Stacy. I agree with Alicia, just strong message about the power of you making your own decisions and going forward with that. It gives me goosebumps to hear your story, and I just think it's like you can help others that are just right behind you to help move that forward in such a positive way. So thanks for being a great role model and paying it forward, I guess, as you move forward and thinking about what you want to do. Thank you. I guess this concludes our Ask a Family Transition to College webinar this afternoon. And so again, Stacy and Mike, thank you for your time and sharing your expertise.